right, I'm sitting here again, and I say again because we've done this before. We've actually not been in this place, but you and I are no strangers to sitting in front of microphones and having conversations, and I happen to be sitting here right now with the one and only, there is only one of you, right?
I hope so.
Okay, Philip Ferguson. Philip, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
So I have to ask you right off the bat, have you ever gone by just Phil? Like, does anybody call you Phil, or is that just a when you get in trouble thing?
It is. Well, no, I mean, my parents always called me Phil Up. It's funny, as I've gotten older, though, more people ask me that question all the time. Do you go by Phil or Philip? So I don't know what it is. There's something.
So you're sticking with Philip, or?
Well, I mean, that's the name my mom gave me, so that's what I feel like it should be. But
I gotcha.
Some have called me Phil to thrill in different situations, but
I hope we're talking about roller coasters. And,
of course.
So do you remember the last time we did this? Do you remember where we were at?
Yeah, we were at Lucy's on the Square.
We were, and it was fairly loud in there. From what I remember, you've got the clanging of the dishes and the plates and just the ambient noise, but how was that? It was a pretty good experience, right? That didn't turn out too bad.
Yeah, it was great. We were on a high top table there in the corner, close to the bar, and yeah, you had us all hooked up and ready to go. It was my first time doing something like that. So
now you're in the new studio. You have to tell me, what do you think about it so far?
Well, it'd be nice to be close to the bar area like we were at Lucy's, but other than that, it's pretty comfortable.
There's a bar right there. There's just nothing there, but there is a bar. You should have brought something over here. Actually, you did. What do you have in your cup today?
Oh, just water. Just water. I'm a big water drinker.
We don't need to do a test on it or anything?
No. Okay. I'll be okay on the way home.
Gotcha. So when we did that first podcast, if I remember right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were running for office for the first time. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, this seat, place one, we have 6 places on Celina City Council plus a mayor, so there's 7 folks total. But yeah, place one, the seat was open, so yeah, I threw my name in the hat to be considered by the voters, and
apparently they considered you well because you actually won. Mm-hmm. And so, how long has it been now?
So we have 3-year terms. So yeah, I'm at the end of my first term. So whenever it is, May 3rd's the election,
right?
And so thereabouts is
roughly 3 years ago. We were in this position at Lucy's. I don't remember. Did we eat that day? I don't remember.
No, we didn't.
We didn't eat. It's probably better. I don't know if people like it when you're like sitting there. You got mac and cheese on your fork and stuff in your face while you're trying to talk. It's probably gets all over the stuff. It just just ruins the whole thing. But you do have a dubious honor of being the first podcast episode that I did. You were the star of that show on the very, very first podcast. So 3 years ago, you were the first one. So how does it feel? I know you're city council and I know you get all these accolades and stuff, but by far, the best thing that you could possibly have is being the first episode of CelinaRadio.com, right?
I love being a trailblazer, and to do it on your show was fantastic.
I appreciate you coming back and doing this again. And of course, the reason that you're back, besides the fact that you just wanted to come check everything out because it's so awesome in here, is the fact that you're running again. You're running for reelection. So talk to me a little bit about the decision-making process. Like, why did you decide to run again? Yeah,
great question. I get asked that a lot. So when I first did it, I had only intended on doing this for one term. But as you get into it and you really start to feel like you're actually making a big difference. I mean, until this point, I was on our HOA board for a lot of years. And you do some things there to make a difference in your neighborhood. And I live in Heritage, so I hope folks look back on that and say, hey, the neighborhood's better in a lot of ways thanks to some of the efforts I did and others, of course. It's always a team effort. But in 3 years being on city council, I mean, we've done a lot in 3 years, and there's more to do. I will promise to the voters, I'm only a 2-termer, so
you're not going to do it again, no matter what.
You've got it on record.
You've got it right here on Celina Radio on video. But is that because of the term limits thing that's coming up now, or is that a personal choice?
It's just a personal choice. I don't feel like I feel like if you're going to do this type of stuff, there has to be some reasons, some motivations in your mind on why you're doing it. And at some point, you sort of accomplish that list. That's one of the reasons, like when I was on our HOA board in Heritage, that was 8 years. And I got on the HOA board because when I first moved there in 2014, I was taking our dog for a walk, and there was no doggy pot stations. And I was like, "Why are there no doggy pot stations here?"
So let me just kind of cut to the comic book version of this real quick, because that's what I tend to do. But so you were motivated to serve on your HOA board by dog poop?
It's something different for everyone. But yeah, so I had gone to the first HOA meeting I could, and I brought up the fact that I said, "Hey, we were thought about doggy pot stations." No one even knew what I was talking about. And I was born and raised in Dallas, but I moved to Las Vegas when I finished college. I went to North Texas, Go Mean Green. And there, it's very common in all the parks and community spaces. There's doggy pot stations everywhere, little bags to pick up dog poop and whatever. So I was just surprised we didn't have them there. And then when I brought it up, I didn't get the sense that there was a motivation. Oh, we really need this in the neighborhood. So I said, I need to get on this HOA board so I can really push from the inside, so we can just have doggy pot stations. so that was the motivation. But then once you get into it, you find, well, yeah, we need those, but also this and also that and whatever. And that list kind of gets long. But at some point, no matter how long the list is, at some point you get to the end of it. And that's where I was there. I kind of felt like, all the reasons why I wanted to be, on the HOA board, I felt like all that has been accomplished. So my time is done. So similar with city council, we're in the middle of a lot of things right now. I mean, Celina is in a big transition, as everyone knows. But there's so many things going great. People that see my social media posts, they probably see I usually start at Celina. It just keeps getting better and better, because in so many ways it has. And there's just more work to do in that department. But as like I said, I think public office, it's a privilege to serve, not meant to be something you do forever, though.
Gotcha. So you're definitely doing the 2-year term. Do you see yourself ever running for mayor of Celina?
Not really. I know that thought hasn't entered me. I see what our current mayor deals with all
You're like,
all
I
the
don't
time.
want any of that. I'm good.
Honestly, I just don't know if I'd have the bandwidth for it between for work and just your other commitments in life to really do it the right way. I don't know that I have the time for it, honestly.
So we'll reapproach that in 3 years and see if that's something that has come on the radar at that point. But can you tell me this? And I know everybody wants to know this, because this is one of those like really crazy important questions that this is what you make the little video teasers out of. Okay, so how many of those little doggy station things were you able to actually get in your neighborhood?
We had a budget for 3, so it gets better. So we bought 3. They were about $100 each, but there wasn't room. This is how tight the budget was. There wasn't room in the landscape contract for the landscaper to refill the doggy bags, right? So they needed someone to do it. So they said, "Here, you think the doggy stations are so important, you do it." So yeah, for 8 years, I went by, usually I ride my bike through the neighborhood and I go by the stations to see if they're full or not. And if they're empty, then, I go back home, get the little key, open up the box, put the plastic bags in there, and that's it. I will say it was annoying when you see some people pull a whole handful of bags out.
You're like, hey.
It's like, seriously, now I got to come back sooner.
Could you just get 1 or maybe 2? Yeah. I know. People, right? People.
The grocery bags from Brookshire's were good too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So after, and I'm going to stop asking you funny questions in a minute, I promise. But after, so you've done, are you still refilling those or no?
No, I handed that responsibility off to others.
I was just wondering, so how did that conversation go when you were handing off that responsibility to someone else? Did you say, I've done this long enough?
Yeah, I simply made a list of everything that I kind of do behind the scene. I mean, like stuff like changing out the flags at the front entrance. They get tattered over time with the wind, and just a bunch of little things. Paint colors for the signs, because you got to repaint them. For what it costs to have a handyman come out and do that stuff, I mean, it's expensive.
Take care of it yourself.
Right. It's cheaper just to put the paint in your own garage and just kind of handle that stuff as you need it. But yeah, I sent an email around with little bullet points. So this is everything. These are who we use to order, inflatables for National Night Out and all that kind of stuff. And I said, here you go. Thank you.
There you go. And just handed it on off.
Warm transfer. Here you go.
Exactly. And you'll do the same thing again in 3 years if you're reelected. And so you do have an opponent this go round. You had one last time. You've got one this time. And so I'm very, very curious curious, how's the race going so far?
I think it's going good for me. I like to adopt the Ronald Reagan strategy of happy warrior, so yes, of course I want to win. And I think we've run a positive campaign. I've done a lot of work on the social media front, especially just to kind of keep let the voters know what's going on with Celina. Because it's easy to make assumptions about things. When people don't know, they just usually assume things, and oftentimes it's not positive or definitely not accurate. So I feel like it's incumbent upon me to put as much information out there as we can on what's going on with the city. Some are going to like it, some aren't. I get it, but you can't say you don't know. So to me, it's important just to get the information out there, let people know what we're doing, when's all this going to happen, and that's what kind of ties into the campaign. I am up for reelection, so I should be accountable for what's happened in Celina and what's about to happen in Celina. And I think the way you can help voters out in that department is just to let them know, and then they'll decide at the ballot box if that was a good or bad that we did.
So I recently had the mayor on. And one of the things that we talked about was how so few people are making the decisions for so many people. And we know that Celina has grown astronomically, and it will continue to. And we might talk about some of that stuff in a minute. It just kind of depends. We'll either talk about Star Wars or we'll talk about that. I'm kind of leaning towards Star Wars, but why is it, do you believe, that we have so low of a voter turnout in Celina?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it applies all over the U.S. I've told people for years, when I was our Republican precinct chairman here for 5 years, I used to tell people all the time, presidential elections get all the press, and that's what everyone gets excited about. You get, even in those cases, you're going to get 50% voter turnout. But in my mind, the elections that matter the most, that impact your everyday life, president, yes, to some extent, but really your city council, your school board, and the local district attorney. Those are the people that impact everyday life around here. President Trump doesn't have anything to do with what's going on Preston Road. But if you ask anyone around here, Preston Road is an issue, and yes, we push on TxDOT all the time about, we got to do something with Preston Road, start expanding, do something. So to me, the local matters more, but the voting turnout is the exact opposite. That's where people vote the least. Typically, what is Celina, 55,000 or so people now, and if we get 5% voter turnout in a municipal election, that's considered good. I don't know. In my business, 5% of the total is usually,
that's not a good thing.
Considered failure. Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. So I understand that, people in our lives now, and I'm not saying anything that everyone watching or listening to this right now, nor you or I don't already know this, but we live very crazy, busy lives. And to bring something in like politics where you have to kind of really focus and really get into the issues. And of course, if you hear one thing and then there's an opponent or another side to whatever the issue is, then that means you got to also learn about that one so that you can make an informed decision. And then in the end, all it means is your one little vote. And then at the end of the day, you think, does my one little vote really matter that much? It's almost not worth getting into all of it. And of course, we know there's a ton of negativity that comes along with politics nationally, all the way on down to locally. So, and you've told me that I can ask you anything that I want to ask. So short of you standing up, throwing your cup at me and walking out, I will ask you about some things because they're very, very interesting in from my perspective of the dynamics that have been here in Celina. And let me kind of explain that a little bit. I'll try to make the short version. The short version is I've been here for 32 years. 32 years ago, we had a lot of political nonsense going on here. And it was really, really, really bad. It was just awful. It was toxic. And it felt like Celina was unique like that. Celina, it's real bad in Celina. And I don't know that that it was necessarily any worse than it is in any other small town America, right? That's just, maybe it's natural to the small town life or something. I don't know. But we've more recently had a bunch of that nonsense here. And you can weigh in on this, but two really large factions, in my opinion. I mean, you're either kind of on this side or this side. And I've seen that play out before in Frisco. I've seen it play out in different places, but you got caught up a little bit in that stuff, a little bit of those dynamics. So why those things have to exist, I don't understand. Maybe you can shed some light on that. Like, why do we have to have groups and factions and stuff?
Yeah, it's such a great question and so many interesting dynamics about it. On one hand, I like that there's discourse that way because it just shows you that people are passionate about what they believe. Now, at the end of the day, we may come down on different sides of the equation, you know. And to me, there's nothing wrong with someone who cares about an issue deeply one way, and I may feel about it a different way. That's okay. We can respect differences, you know. Where I wish things were different is where things get personal, you know, and it doesn't have to be personal. We can disagree and still go out for, you know, a drink or something later on. But it seems like in a lot of cases, like, well, if you think differently, then somehow you're a bad person. And I wish that wasn't the case. My experience was, you know, when I first announced I was going to run in 22, and this is, I think, early January. So I just kind of put it out there on social media. I was kind of taken aback by how many calls and text and Facebook messages and stuff I got from people asking me what side was I on. And I thought that was such a weird question because up to that point, I mean, I'd done a lot of volunteer work around town. I won the city's Volunteer of the Year the year before, you know, so as far as I'm concerned, I didn't look at anything as a side. I just thought people are here trying to, as Pollyanna as it sounds, just trying to do the right thing, right? So I was surprised when I got all those inquiries. So that's what got me thinking. I said, I don't feel like I'm on anybody's side necessarily. That's why my signs say Team Celina, because I would tell people over and over again, I said, look, if it's for the good of the city, you can probably count me as a yes. If it's for the not the good of the city, count me as a no. And I'm persuadable. So let's hear your argument. And unfortunately, a lot of times people don't want to make the argument. They just want you to see things their way. And if you don't, well, then there's something wrong with you, you know, and I don't operate that way. I mean, you can go back and look at the voting record. I don't feel like I'm consistent for one group of people or the other. That depends on what the issue is. Sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's that way. And I would think that's what a voter wants in their local leadership is an independent thinker. Again, I'm not going to make everyone happy all the time. I've jokingly said, if no one's happy with me, I must be doing something right. But yeah, that's how I kind of look at it. I try to take personalities out of it and just look at the issue for what it is, and do my own research, gather my own facts in a lot of cases, and then make a decision. You know, and if it looks like, oh, you're supporting this side or that side, well, it may look like that to someone on the outside, but if we have a conversation about it, that's not how the decision was made in my mind.
So how are those dynamics now? And I've heard it framed up different ways, and certainly, you know, I've been a part of that end. I'm not, you know, like trying to claim innocence on my part. I've been very much involved in all of that stuff. I would probably say that the side that I more, you know, found myself aligning with was not your side. You were in a group of people who kind of took control, and you may or may not have been a part of it, may or may not have been, you know, agreeable to it, but like wiping out all the boards and commissions, like clearing them off and making everybody reapply. Were you in support of that or no?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what my reasons for that was, because when I was out campaigning, I mean, I talked to...
But before you say that, yes or no, you were in favor or not?
Of resetting the board, yes.
Okay.
I will push back a little bit on the terminology about wiping them out and whatever. I didn't look at it that way. It was
if you were on a border commission, you might feel like it was wiping them out. So, but go ahead and explain.
Yeah. So when I was out campaigning, and I talked to a lot of people all over the city, and a pretty consistent feedback I would hear from people is that they've been trying to get on various boards and commissions for a long time, and they apply, they never get a call back. They feel as if they're just never considered, and then it's the same group of people that seem to get appointed over and over and over again. So there's this perception, whether it's right or wrong, but there's a perception out there that it's like, you know, you got to be part of the cool kids club in order to get considered for it. My own experience, like I was on a Main Street board for a lot of years, and when that segued into the special events board, I just got a call from someone on city council that said, oh, we're going to put you on the special events board. I was like, great. I'd be happy to serve. But I didn't compete against anyone. I didn't interview. And looking back, I was like, well, I was given special treatment. I didn't know it at the time, but I was given special treatment. So in my mind, once I got elected, I was like, well, who else got that special treatment, So to me, the easy way to address it, if there's a big group of people out there who feel like they didn't get a fair shot at boards and commissions, and if we have a lot of people on some of these boards and commissions that maybe they aren't the best ones we can have on there because they haven't had to compete for it, well, here, let's just hit the reset button. If you're interested in applying, here's your chance. If you want to stay on, here's your chance, because no one was excluded from having to apply and be considered again. And I think, I'll be fuzzy on the math here a little bit because I don't recall exactly, but I think, close to half, I think, of the people who were on all the boards and commissions were reappointed because they were good people to be on there.
So you felt like it was better to err on the side of there may be people who, kind of like in your case, that didn't really have to compete. So we need to wipe all the boards clean or remove everybody, whatever terminology you want to use, because that may have happened. But what about the people who that didn't happen to, who went through the process, who felt like they were giving their all, and now they're out? What about them?
Well, there's a certain amount of seats. That's the thing at the end of the day. So if you have 7 slots to fill and you have 15 highly qualified people, you have to make choices. So some people may have got caught up in that's unfortunate if that's the case. But you can't take everyone.
But do you think that may have been the case?
It could have been the case for person 2. I'm not saying it was a perfect process.
If you had to go back now and do that again, would you still do the same thing? Because I've heard other people who supported that actually even kind of pushed it, who've said, I wouldn't do that again.
I don't know.
Like today, would you do it today?
I'll answer it this way. I think the desired effect in my mind, I want to make sure we have the best we can. And if you look at the folks serving on our boards and commissions today compared to 3 years ago, I would argue that we have higher caliber talent on there. Not that the people that there were before weren't.
So we don't want to hear from people who didn't get back on saying that they are somehow less qualified.
No. They were obviously qualified because they were on the board before.
But not qualified enough because they all got wiped out.
Well, let me ask you this: if you had someone applying for a job as a videographer, right, and they were did it as a hobby, and you're trying to hire someone, so you've got 2 candidates: one who does it as a hobby, one who's got 30 years experience being a videographer and a lot of awards and accolades behind him. Who's obviously the better candidate, everything else being equal?
Yeah, of course.
So it doesn't mean that the one that did it as a hobby isn't fantastic at it. Maybe they are.
Right.
But you're competing.
But there may be better out there.
Right. You're competing for X amount of seats. That's the thing. You're fighting for shelf space.
It reminds me of something I used to hear: we can do better. Have you heard that before?
I've heard a few people say that. I don't
know. Be real honest with me right now. You've heard that before.
I don't know why they would say that when by almost every measure, Celina is better every single day. Right. Traffic is not something I'm gonna brag about, but that's growing pains.
Absolutely. So as of today, fast forward to today, we're 3 years later, and I'll just tell you this, and I'm very clearly on the record with everyone that I talk to. I despise the 2-group thing more than I can tell you. And I kind of pride myself on not really being loved by either group. I'm very uniquely right here. I may have aligned more this way, but I feel this way, and you can kind of maybe possibly relate to this too. I've always aligned more personally with conservative and Republican stuff, just the way I've been. Started off my early life Democrat, made the switch when I started learning economics and doing things like that. And, but I was very disappointed during the Newt Gingrich contract with America, some of the promises that didn't actually come through. So I learned very quickly that although I may never fully support a liberal or a Democrat personally, okay, I still also don't necessarily fully align with this other side. It's just going to depend on the issue. It's going to depend on what's coming up. So maybe I'm still like that with some of these stupid group dynamics that are, in this city still, that I hope go away. I hope they all disappear, and I hope everybody learns to truly kumbaya and like really get together for the betterment of the city, and puts a lot of their personal agenda and stuff like that behind. Because to me, I've had so much of it. I've witnessed so much of it here. It's just sickening. I don't like it, and I don't want it. And I don't care which group you're in or what's happened in the past. I think we need to work very hard to get away from that. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to say, there's that dynamic. It's been at play in the past, although I feel like it may be getting better. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, but can you promise me and everyone watching this right now that moving forward, when those things come up, that you'll work just as hard against those big, ugly dynamics of polarization within our local government, within our community, as you will for things like getting doggy pods out there and stuff? Will you work just as hard on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, ultimately, I think we have a pretty good dynamic in our city council right now. I mean, not everyone sees things the same way, but I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the council and the mayor, but I think everyone has Celina's best interest at heart. How we go about doing that, might vary a little bit, but yeah, it seems like a lot of the, angst, from that was there. Certainly when I first came in, it's just not there now. I feel like, we're all kind of rowing the boat more in sync, definitely in the same direction.
And I can honestly say, on behalf of myself and all of the citizens who are not serving, thank you, because that's the way we want it to be. We don't want all of that stuff. We don't like it. And so still to this day, when that stuff pops up, I'm going to fight against that wholeheartedly. So you can say, well, there's this side and this side. And the fact that there's sides means that Ron Lyons has a reason to exist in this community, because I don't like the sides.
Right.
I don't like that stuff. You have to literally be able to put Celina first and mean it. Everybody says it during campaign time, right? Everybody's like, Celina first. And when it comes time to actually put that into practice, I don't know if that's actually carried out always. And I'm certainly not saying you, I'm saying across the board. In order for there to be one side, there's got to be another, right? So you can't have up without down. Down doesn't exist without up. So, that's how it is. So by all means, that dynamic seems to be going away, seems to be getting better. I think Mayor Tubbs said the same thing. He said he sees it as maybe we're in, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, and I hope I'm not speaking wrong, but it's all on the podcast, so we can reference that. But I think he said that we're maybe in the best condition as a entire, meaning EDC, Chamber of Commerce, the City Council, like everybody, in his opinion, is better now than we may have been in recent history.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think everyone's much more aligned than what they've been in the past. And just to put a bow tie on, or put a bow on the boards and commissions discussion, when I get asked about that, that's usually the bottom line I ask people to consider. Do you feel like we have the overall quality of the boards and commissions we have today, is it better today than what it was in 22? And I'm not saying the ones in 22 were bad. I'm just asking, is today better?
Right.
And universally, everyone says, yes, it is. So again, you don't always like the path that you have to take, but ultimately, we're in a good spot. It's strong. At the time, I don't think we had special events, or not special events, a fine arts board. We had it, but there was no one seated on it, because it was like, well, we can't find enough people to do this. But when we opened it up for everybody, I think we had 3 applicants for every 1 seat available. So it was great because we had a lot of people to choose from. And since then, we get a lot of applicants applying for these boards and commission spots. So again, it's a good problem to have, that you can pick the best,
right?
The best available at the time. And again, that doesn't mean the folks that don't get picked are not good. It just means we just don't have a seat this time, maybe
right.
Next time. It's not a no, it's a not now, usually in this situation.
And that's the best way to put it. It's a not now. I grew up hearing maybe later and we'll see. Did you grow up hearing all that from your parents? So,
oh, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't mean no. It's the perfect way of saying just not right now, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe later. So yeah, I grew up listening to that quite a bit. So I'm familiar with that. So if it's true that everything is getting so much better And some of that stuff is going away. And I don't think that it'll necessarily ever all go away, right? Like there's always going to be dynamics and, things that happen that create ripples for a minute, but hopefully those things get kind of handled and die down. And you want a passing grade, right? Like a passing grade isn't 100. A passing grade is anything from 70 and up. Mm-hmm. If we can keep a passing grade, we're probably doing pretty good. But even when you have a 70, that means that 30% wasn't right. 30% was off. 30% was wrong. 30% didn't feel good or work well, whatever it is. So I don't have some pie in the sky idea thinking that we've got to be perfect around here. But I do think that we owe this community and these citizens a passing grade. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think in a lot of cases, if you think about personal relationships or work relationships or whatever, anytime you're in some kind of negotiation, right? If your mindset is it's 100% or it's nothing, you're probably difficult to deal with, and you're probably not happy a lot of times. I mean,
I would agree with that.
I think, a maturity factor in life is if you get 80% of what you want, sometimes if you get 51% of what you want, count that as a win and move on, at least for now. It doesn't mean you can't come back and revisit some of this stuff and keep it challenging. It's like a ship trying to cross the ocean. If you set your course, if you're going to go from Southampton to New York, and you point the ship that direction, and you don't make any changes along the way, you're never going to get to New York. The wind's going to blow you, the waves and everything you need to blow. So you course correct along the way to get to where you need to be. So decisions we make locally, I think, is the same thing. I mean, sometimes this will work for now, and we can come back and revisit this again and keep massaging it, to try to get it as perfect as we can.
Absolutely.
And like I said, if it means 70% this time or whatever percent this time, then fine. That's where we're at now, and we'll continue to work at it and keep getting better. It's a process. It's not a check in the box in my mind.
Absolutely. So talk to me about this. So Celina has changed a lot in these last 3 years, from where we were 3 years ago to right now. What do you see as some of the achievements that we've made that you've been a part of within the city over these last 3 years?
Yeah, so I mean, if folks look at my campaign Facebook page, there's 6 things that were a big issue for me in 22, and those same priorities hold still today. So one's fiscal responsibility. I don't have a problem spending money. I hate wasting money though. Anyway, my kids tell me I'm cheap, and I was like, cheap? I spend money on a lot of things. I just don't like to waste money.
Right.
So I look at the same way as taxpayer. I mean, that's one of your biggest obligations as elected officials. Don't waste taxpayer money. So fiscal responsibility has always been a big one for me. I mean, luckily the last 3 years we've been able to lower the city tax rate all 3 years. I know we're paying more taxes out of pocket because of the way the state does its property tax thing, which that's a whole other discussion. But at least in terms of the percentage that the city's charging us, that's gone down every 3 years. That to me is a win. Infrastructure is a big one. I know traffic. I have to drive through the city too. I hate the potholes and everything else. We cannot pour enough concrete fast enough. I was born and raised in Dallas, but I lived in Las Vegas for 19 years, from the mid-90s to 2014 when I moved here. And Las Vegas was booming back then too. Same thing. You cannot build the stuff fast enough to keep up with everyone coming in. So it's definitely growing pains. But I mean, if you look back, how many miles of new concrete roads have been poured in the last 3 years? Repaved streets. I don't know how many thousands, if not tens of thousands of potholes. I bet if you talk to Public Works, they'll probably say, yeah, Ferguson reports more than anyone else, because I'm on that app. If I'm driving around, I see a pothole, I report it constantly.
So talk to me about the app. You said if you're on the app, you're reporting potholes. Talk to me about that.
Oh, that's the Celina, the Life Connected app. So you can go on that, and it kind of tells you what's going on around the city and everything else. But you can report a problem on there. So if you see anything you want, a branch in the road, a street sign missing, whatever, a cow on Preston, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But I can tell you 99.9% of the time I'm using it to report potholes. And it's pretty cool because you can, like, wherever you're at, it'll geo find you where you're at. You can even take a picture of the problem and just attach it right there. It is a piece of cake to use.
Very, very cool.
It's a source of frustration for me that it seems like you got some people that have a lot of time to report problems on social media, but they have no time at all just to report it through their proper channel so it can get fixed. And, when I report it, usually within a day or two, they get them taken care of. But infrastructure is a big one. Again, streets, repaving, traffic signals, safety signs, sewer, water capacity, all that stuff we've done in 3 years. Public safety is a big one for me as well. We opened a new fire station. It's won national awards about how cool it is, and it was long overdue for the police department. We've opened fire station number 3 on the west side of town, to service folks there. It was taking too long for fire to get from, the heart of Celina to our western edges. And, sometimes seconds matter on situations like that. And fire station number 4 is under construction. We've increased pay, better equipment, better training. I mean, we've done so much for police and fire, and I want to continue to do that. Hiring the best is one thing I was interested in as well. Again, whatever we're talking about with Celina, I want it to be the best. So if it's when it comes to personnel or if it comes to events or whatever it is that we're talking about, the best we can get, that's what we should be aiming for, basically. And we have a great city staff right now. A lot of times I think default position a lot of people think of when they think of, government bureaucrats and that kind of stuff is this, you think of DMV type folks just kind of hanging around, not moving very fast. And that's not the case here. And the city is run very lean by people who care and people that are highly efficient at their job. And because if you hire right, everything else tends to take care of itself, in my opinion. So continue moving in that direction. Unique events is something that's close to my heart too. I mean, that's how I kind of got involved with everything here, was just helping out on the Main Street board. We did Star Wars night in 2015. That was the first time I ever did something like that. I found out I liked it. Turned out the community liked it as well. So, from that, I just kind of built on other things. But I think that's one thing that makes Celina unique. I mean, if you think about this, I'll bag on our neighbors a little bit. So Prosper to the south. I mean, Prosper is booming too, right? They got a kind of stuff going on. But when you think of Prosper, what do you think of? I think of Walmart. I mean, so great. I mean, we're getting one here too as well. But I don't want people, when people think about Celina, they think, oh, Celina has a Walmart. Right. When you think about Celina, you think of Cajun Fest, you think of Splash and Blast, Christmas on the Square. There's a cool vibe in Celina, and our neighbors around us don't have it, and I don't think they can replicate it at this point. So unique events is what makes it different to live in Celina versus someplace else. Because what's the point of just being another cookie cutter North Texas boomtown? A bunch of houses and a bunch of corporate USA. I mean, that's going to come, but the events are really what separates us. So that's always been the big one for me. And the last one is just partnerships with our school districts. Our former mayor used to say that people move to a community for 2 reasons: because they feel safe and because the schools are good. And I 100% agree with that. So anything we can do to help out the ISD, educate our kids better. Both of my kids graduated Celina. They're doing great. Thank you, Celina.
They turned out well.
Yeah, go Bobcats. So anything we can do on the city side to help support the ISD and their mission, and I want to be a partner in that, and we've done that in the last 3 years.
Do you know of any reason, and this actually came up during the podcast with Mayor Tubbs, we were talking about the new bond thing coming up with the ISD, right? Which is, it freaks a lot of people out because the term billions, right? Mm-hmm. We're just not used to hearing numbers like that. And so it concerns people. And if you don't dive into it, if you don't look into it, if you don't go down a few layers to see what that means, it might scare you. And you might automatically say, no, I'm not going to pay a whole lot more, or whatever. When in fact, maybe it doesn't actually affect you financially at all. Who knows? But I asked him, I said, are you able to legally weigh in on that? Because the school board cannot. Dr. Tom cannot. He can say, we have this, and if you vote this way, this is what it might get you. And if you vote this way, this is what it might get you. But he can't say, and I think, you should support it. He can't come out in favor or against it. He just can talk neutrally about what it is. Mm-hmm. And so I asked Mayor Tubbs, I said, can you weigh in on that? He goes, I'm not real sure. But he did kind of, he sounded like he supports it. So do you know whether or not you can weigh in on that or not? Do you know of any legal reason why you can't?
I don't know the legal implications, but I'll just say if you watch the presentation that Dr. Tom will do on the growth charts for the ISD, it's pretty obvious that there's a need for more facilities for the school district. We have 200 people per week move to Celina. 200 per week. And a lot of that's kids, so the existing buildings that the ISD has, they can't accommodate that. They need more. This bond, I don't know all the details on its genesis and stuff. I know there was a bond committee made up of citizens and so forth. So it's not like it was some back office that a couple guys went in and said, "Hey, 2.3 bill sounds good to me," and then they walked out and here it is. I mean, right. there was some work and effort put into it to get to where it is. I think, from the people I've talked to, everyone recognizes that, of course, we need more elementary schools. Of course, there needs to be, more junior highs and a second high school and so forth. It's the price tag is what shocks people. It's not like when you go to a car show and you see, I'm a Honda guy. Okay, I've driven Hondas my entire life. I'm not changing. But yeah, you go to a car show sometimes and you see an Accord and you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And you go around the corner and see the sticker and it's like, when did those get so expensive?
Exactly.
But that's the thing. Everything is so much more expensive these days, and it doesn't necessarily mean, at least my understanding is that they'll necessarily spend that much money on certain things. Like I think the one that most people kind of gravitate towards is the price of a second high school. 600 something million, I think, is what's on paper, which I've heard would be the most expensive high school in the country. I don't know if that's true. I haven't fact checked it, but it sounds like a big number. But that's what the number is. By the time you buy the land and build what is necessary nowadays to educate kids for the 21st century, the idea is just having a library with some books and, the Commodore 64 in the corner. I mean, those are gone. It's everything is way more high tech, which means it's way more expensive and everything else. So in my mind, the district needs this stuff.
You're not going out and saying yes. You're just saying, I think they need those things. Like they're important. Like you said, we can't have the Commodore computer sit in the corner, and we can't do it the way you and I did it. Right. It's a different time. It's a whole different day and age.
Yeah. And I think the way the math works, and I'll punt to Dr. Tom to correct me if I'm wrong in this podcast, but I think the way the dollar amounts work is from a tax standpoint. The ISD property tax rate doesn't change, but of course we got more homeowners moving in all the time, right? So that means we're all still paying the same tax rate, but more people are paying into it. That provides the funds the ISD needs to handle the amount of the bond. So to your point earlier about it's not going to really cost you anything. That sounds accurate to me, but I'll defer to the experts if my math is wrong.
From what I understand, he is coming back on the show again. He was on here just a little while back, and so he is going to come back, and we'll ask him all about that. We'll find out exactly how the numbers are going to work. He's very, very well versed in that stuff. But let's get back to this election stuff that's going on right now. So you do have an opponent. That's Dorothy Allen.
Correct.
And so I'm curious, like from your perspective, and we talked about this a little bit before the podcast started today. I'm a huge fan of you can stand against the way another person makes decisions. You can stand against the way they lead or don't lead or whatever it is. You can stand against them in ways like that and still not hate them, still not want the worst for them, still not think that they are, the devil and stuff like that. We can be cordial and friendly and have completely different perspectives. And so when I talk about these things like with your opponent, I literally believe that we can talk and literally hold it to differences and things like that in what I just said: leadership, decision making, skills that you bring to the table, experiences, stuff like that. So I want to be very clear that when I ask these questions, I'm asking in that sense. So when I say, why should people vote for Philip Ferguson and not Dorothy Allen, I legitimately mean, like, why are you the better candidate? So there's the question.
Well, it's a great question. I would just point to a 3-year.
Have you noticed yet? I only ask great questions.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
There's no great questions, only great interviewers.
That's right. That's right. You all heard it here, and you heard it from him. So,
well, to be fair, yes, I know Dorothy's running against me. Obviously, I don't know why she's running against me. I mean, I haven't heard a position articulated on why it's worth it to the voters to change course at this point. So I would just look back, or just point to the last 3 years, and say, do you like everything we've done? I mean, some of these things I already talked about. Police and fire, lower taxes, better event. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. What part of that is, it's not good, we could have done better here or there? Fine, let's hear it. I haven't heard it yet, though. So when you ask me, well, why should someone vote for me? I was like, well, if you like the direction that the city is moving, if you like everything that's been added to the city, if you like what the vision is for us going forward, then I think I'm your guy. If you think we're totally off track and need to go a 180 or whatever the situation may be, well, then you have another choice. But you don't have to talk to that candidate and find out what that is.
So as of right now, you don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
And so have you seen? I haven't personally seen, so I'm literally asking you. Like I legitimately have not seen any perspectives or platforms or anything like that yet. And we still have, in fairness to everyone watching this, depending on when you're watching this, how many weeks away from the election are we right now?
I have 5 weeks to early voting. Early voting starts 5 weeks from tomorrow. It's right after Easter, Tuesday after Easter.
That's kind of where we're at right now. So there's still time for a platform to be articulated, to be put forth and things like that. But as of right now, I haven't seen that. So have you seen that at all? I have not.
No, I've not seen that. So yeah, it's 5 weeks to early voting, but in my mind, 5 weeks is not a lot of time to establish a brand for yourself and articulate what your message is and why the current person seat, in this case me, should be replaced. You got 3 years of history and 5 weeks to undo that. So I mean, we'll see what the voters decide. I'm pretty open and transparent. I think anyone that spends any time on social media in Celina, and Celina loves Facebook, but anyone that spends any time, I mean, they see my stuff out there. I like to be very open and transparent, and people ask questions. They send me messages all the time. My phone number is right on my personal cell phone number is right on my campaign page, so I get texts from people all the time. I've been asked to have sit downs with people who I know are in opposition to me. No problem. We sit down and talk about things and whatever. I don't always change their mind. They don't always change mine. But I'm very open and transparent. Yeah, I think sunlight is a good disinfectant, as the phrase goes. So here it is. It's all out there in the open. So like I said earlier, people can't say they don't know or they didn't know. I put everything out there in a very transparent way, and the voters will judge if it's worthy to continue the course, or if it's like no, we need something to change. But I'll say one caveat to that. A lot of times you'll hear feedback from folks, especially online, about the growth, and they don't like the growth and whatnot. I get it. I totally get it. I grew up in the Pleasant Grove part of Dallas. A lot of people think I mean Pleasant Grove, Texas. No. I mean Pleasant Grove, Dallas. You know, so not the most economically robust part of the city. We'll just put it that way. So I remember when an Eckerd Drug opened, and we thought that was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new beginning. So I'm just not used to seeing a lot of stuff happen. So to see stuff popping up here, it's exciting on one hand, but I understand. People have some pushback on the growth, but Texas is a very strong property rights state. So in the same way that folks listening to this, that they wouldn't want the city to show up knocking on their door telling them, oh, you can't build that shed in the back because we don't want it there, or whatever. They're like, hey, it's my land, I'll do whatever I want. I agree. I'm very libertarian in that way. I agree. It's your stuff. You should be able to do what you want. But that holds true for developers too. When a farmer sells 1,000 acres to a developer and it fronts, whatever, the tollway or the outer loop, or what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to continue to grow corn. Of course they want to develop it, So in the same way, you don't want a government official telling you what to do with your own land. Neither do those large property owners. So what the city can do is try to control what that development looks like. So we have very high standards here. Our building codes are one of the toughest around, in terms of aesthetically how buildings have to look. and other things. So that's where we can control. So the growth is going to happen. We want smart growth. One of the things we've done in the last 3 years, we put together a 5-year CIP plan, is what it's called, Capital Improvement Program Plan. So we can grow smartly, so we know what big things are coming, and so we can plan for it today, so it's not a surprise in the future, and we don't have to feel like we're playing catch up all the time, So that's all I can say about the growth piece of it. I'll throw in that about 80% of the city, of the people that live in Celina, have moved here in the last 5 years. So there must be something here that's appealing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming. And a lot of the expectations for residents is convenient living. No one wants to go to Prosper or someplace to spend their money. If you spend it here, your sales tax dollars stay here. It benefits us here. It provides EDC more money to help other small businesses here. You want to keep it all here as much as possible.
Absolutely. Just like they want to keep it there. Correct. They don't want people coming up to Celina and spending their money. Everybody needs to take care of their own community, so to speak. Be good neighbors.
Of course.
Obviously be good neighbors, but the more we have here, the better. So speaking of all of that stuff, moving on to how we're going to grow. And let me just ask you this. I think this is a very interesting question. Could you imagine right now being in Frisco, Texas, and saying, we really want to keep Frisco small. We don't want Frisco to grow. Could you have that conversation there today?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe the person, where he's got that farmland right there off the tollway or what. I mean, he's holding out, but
pretty much the growth is like, it's not only coming, it's like it's well landed and it's happening.
The rocket's in the air. So
correct. That's a foregone conclusion, and I feel like we're already there too. There's nothing we can do right now in Celina, Texas, if we're being real, to stop everything. I told Ryan the other day, I said to Mayor Tubbs, I said, I guess I could go down to like the south end of the tollway and block the road. You could like block Preston. We could keep some people from, coming here. But by and large, it's going on. So now, if that's the case, what do we do about it? So I kind of feel like it's an old argument now, and almost a pointless argument to talk about stopping the growth or slowing it down. Like, that's just simply not going to happen. And it's almost taking advantage of people who don't have that clarity right now. Like, they don't know. They're not involved in local government. They don't see all the, the allocation for rooftops, the all of that stuff. They don't see all of that. They don't know that. So they think there's still a chance that we can hold on to our small town. And that's probably not the case. So now, how do we hold on to elements of it, the feel, the vibe, like you said, things like that? How do we do that now? And I think we're doing a really good job. I think our downtown's insanely good. We're so blessed to have this downtown the way it is. Prosper doesn't have a square.
Right.
Frisco doesn't have a square. Gunter doesn't have a square.
Plano.
No. So it's us and McKinney and very, very few others that are close by. So if that's the case, then what do you, Philip Ferguson, as city council candidate, as someone who's been on council and hopes to be on council for 3 more years, how do you feel about bringing small business, keeping the downtown kind of how it's, got that vibe, so to speak? Like, how do you feel about that?
I'm all for it. Again, that's how I kind of got my start and everything. It's like when I moved here in 2014, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I didn't move here because my best friend lived here or anything like that. The house I wanted to buy in Frisco was too small of a lot and cost too much money, basically.
Exactly.
So the sales agent, because it was new, it was First Texas Homes, they said, hey, we're building the same home up in Celina. Even though I was born and raised in Dallas, I never heard of Celina. I mean, if you were outside of 635, you were just way out there as far as I was concerned. So I never even heard of it, but I was like, well, where's Celina? It's just up Preston, 15 minutes. But yeah, so we drove. I mean, it was still just one lane in each direction at the time because they were building the road. But yeah, we came up here and I was like, the house is a lot less money and it's a bigger lot. And then I said, I was going to explore the town a little bit. And there was a light there on Pecan. So I figured, that must be the main drag into whatever the city is. And then it had a little square here. And, it's if a lot of people that don't know, it's actually unusual that we even have a square. Usually you have to be a county seat to have a square. That's why when you go to downtown Denton, you got the big courthouse and whatever there. It's the same thing for McKinney. You usually have to be a county seat. So it's unusual that Celina even has one, number one. But number two, what we've done with it, when people talk about, we don't want Celina to change it. The spirit here, I feel, it's as strong as ever. Because when we do events, if you came down to Friday Night Market, a weekend or two ago, it was packed down here. When we have the movie night, everything else going on in the square, it is packed because people love that stuff. That's the unique events that I was talking about earlier. That keeps the spirit of the town alive. And I don't think you're going to talk to anyone on city council or that works for the city that doesn't understand that the square is a number one priority for all of us. We want it to be as best it can be. You see the physical manifestation for that right across the street with the crane and everything else coming. It's going to be phenomenal, and it gets better every single day. So yeah, I'm all in for it. You'll never find me making the argument about how we can diminish the square some way. That's just not going to happen. I get upset when the pavers are a little wavy because
do you go on the app and do the thing? there's three bricks on the corner.
Yeah, I've been known to do that.
They probably love you.
Yeah.
But so as we speak right now, we're sitting in this house. It's the old parsonage to the church, right there kind of on the edge of the square. And as well as like almost everybody in Celina, I guess at this point, that we have plans to turn this into a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And it would be really amazing to have it this close to the square. You can literally throw a rock and hit the square. Even at my rapid rate of walking, it's less than 1 minute from the front door here to the front door of Honeysuckle Rose. Mm-hmm. So it's literally, and my rate of walking is not fast anymore. So 56 years old, yeah, it's slow. So we're right here. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about things like converting these homes into things like restaurants and boutiques and different things like that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's great. You've got most established downtowns like this one. You'll have like your commercial corridor type of things. It's not unusual if you drive through. Well, let's use McKinney as an example. But you drive around downtown McKinney, you see old homes that have been converted to like a lawyer's office or an insurance agent or whatever. But a lot of the coolest restaurants you've ever gone to, well, especially for me, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's it's the house that was converted, and it's Mama's Porch Restaurant or something like that. Those are always the cool things because it's not just cookie cutter corporate USA. And yes, eventually we're going to have the Chili's and the Applebee's and all that kind of stuff. That's all great, but if that's all you have, then so what? Again, I'm not trying to bag on our neighbors to the south, but again, when you think about what's unique about Prosper, it's a great community to live in. Don't get me wrong, I'm not diminishing that in any way, but it's more of the same, So
to quote someone that I've heard quoted before, maybe even today, we can do better.
We can and we are. Every single day we get better and better.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm all for that. I think that makes sense. That helps sustain things. You got to have some guardrails. Obviously, you don't necessarily want the entire downtown become a commercial district. Although, who knows what the future holds. I'm not in favor of that. But if that's the direction things go at some point in the future, and that's what makes the most amount of sense, well, why not take a look at it?
Would you say that the way that McKinney's built out, and obviously you're familiar with their downtown and stuff, would you say that that's something to aspire to or not?
Yeah, I don't know all the particulars about it, but you go to their downtown square, they've always got something going on down there. It seems like they have a nice eclectic blend of different types of restaurants, there's some professional stuff down there. For what I do for work, there's some insurance agents that I work with downtown in McKinney. I love going on those appointments because it was cool going to downtown McKinney, parking, walking around, seeing stuff, I think it's awesome.
They've made it a destination. And to me, kind of in line with what you said, you want people to come, park, spend their money, but in return, have a great experience.
Yeah, I was in this past weekend, again, depending on when people hear this. So today's St. Patrick's Day, so this a couple of days ago. So I went down to Granbury. I was just doing some hiking in Dinosaur Valley, but I was staying in Granbury. And the hotel I'm at was just, I don't know, a couple blocks from their downtown square. And of course, they've got their little courthouse, which look really cool. And their square is similar to ours, about one block in each direction. But it was full. They have like an opera house there with a play, a couple of high-end restaurants, winery. There was some retail stores, everything you want in a town square, and the place was packed. So I thought that's great. People want to go to stuff like this, and if you have it, they'll come. If you don't have it, well then,
they can't come. They can't get to it. It's not there.
Then you're prosperous.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, and I will, because I have no fear of, making my feelings known. I never to the detriment of someone else. That's not my intention. It may be an effect thereof. You don't typically tell someone, hey, I don't agree with this, and it may reflect upon them. They may feel bad about, what I said, but it's truly about that thing. Mm-hmm. So when I say this, I don't mean it in a negative way. I love Frisco, lived there for a long time, worked for the city, did all that stuff, but I don't feel like anybody really wants to go to Frisco and hang out downtown.
I would agree. Yeah.
It's just not that. Prosper is doing a better job right now. People do go to downtown Prosper. There's not a square. So they don't have the ability, even in the first place. They've got to kind of build out from streets that intersect with each other, and that makes the nucleus of the city, the downtown. But we do have a square, and we have some big plans for it. And it can be that sort of thing. It can be where people want to come here, hang out, and have a good experience. It will be possible probably very soon. We're getting there now where you really don't have to leave Celina if you don't want to. So,
yeah, it's funny. When I first moved here in 2014, again, there wasn't a lot in Celina at the time. But
try going back to 93. Okay.
I was still in college.
I'll trade your 93 for my,
Yeah, so I remember when I first moved here, I thought, I'll go as far as Stonebriar for something, because to me that wasn't that far, 30 minutes or so, right? And then, as things kept building north, I was like, I'll go as far as El Dorado. I'll go as far as 380. I'll go as far as Frontier. And now I feel like I got to go past Pecan. I feel like I'm going too far in a lot of ways,
Right.
So I come downtown all the time. I mean, it's fun to hang out, and you hit on a key point there. I mean, there's places in like Frisco and some of these others, there's cool places to hang out, individual places, right? But in terms of like an area, like I feel like you can hang out in downtown Celina, so because there's an eclectic blend of different types of restaurants and everything. I love Valley Vines. Heyday's awesome. The Silas that just opened, it's cool. I mean, it's a little bit of a walk from downtown, but nothing you and I can't handle.
Absolutely.
We're not that old yet. But
I'm getting there.
Yeah, but it's cool. You can kind of like be here and I don't want to say pub crawl. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying?
You kind of can. You can come here, you can have dinner, you can check out Friday Night Market, and then you can go over to Valley Vines or up to the Silos or do whatever. You can have an entire great evening here. And guess what? That means that all of those little vendors at Friday Night Market are going to potentially make some money, right? And Valley Vines going to sell you a few things, and then you're going to end up maybe over at the Silos or wherever else. You might go to dinner, Papagayos, whatever, but we're making money and it's staying here. And it's like a party. You and I could have a party right now, but it's not going to be as exciting as if we brought in another 10 or 15 people.
Exactly.
And so the same thing here, the more it grows, especially in the right way, I think it's just the party gets more fun.
Yeah, and one thing with the, it's that small business that gives it the cool vibe. You can't think of too many like big corporate USA, and I'm not anti-corporate USA. Obviously, we all go there, but you can't. I mean, how many cool Chili's do you know? I mean, you've seen one, you've seen them all, kind of thing, right? But it's different here. But one thing that helps that out. I was talking earlier about some people have issues with the growing pains and everything else around here. But one of the reasons why those larger commercial developments are kind of crucial for our city, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that if you look at the city budget, a third of the city budget, a third of our revenue comes from development fees. So when a builder is building a house, they're paying a fee to the city for it. Well, that's a one-time fee for the city, and then it goes away. So then what? So in a way, development is both a blessing and a curse. And when you think about finances, because you kind of need the development because the city just needs it for its budget to pay to police and fire and everything else that we're doing. But it's not a great strategy long term, in my opinion, to rely on that, because at some point development does slow down. I mean, that's just, everything's cyclical, right? And it kind of puts a city in a bind. So what do you do? So most cities, you rely on your sales tax. It's a more stable, predictable flow of revenue for the city. And Celina is severely under-retailed right now. That's just the bottom line. For as many people as we have here, there's just not a lot there. So we need these larger developments, the Home Depots, the Costco's and whatever, because the kind of sales tax revenue they're going to generate helps offset development fees should those reduce or even go away at some point in the future. Plus, it provides more sales tax revenue that funds our EDC. A lot of people don't know the EDC is funded by a 0.5-cent sales tax. So that's, you're not funding it out of your property tax dollars. So obviously, the more sales tax the city has, then the more money the EDC has to work with. Well, what does the EDC do with it? They help start a lot of these small businesses around here on the square, the facade grants, and everything else. So it's all interconnected. So when people want to stop one piece of it, there's a ripple effect for everything. So I think we're on it's always a balancing act. You got a lot of balls in the air at any given time, but I think we're handling it right, and I think the city's on a good path for all that. And the net effect of all that stuff is we get all these cool businesses that you and I have been talking about.
Absolutely.
And make it fun to hang out with.
It does exactly, and I hate to use that term too much, but it does. It creates a vibe, and it makes it, like I said, a fun and appealing place. And people are already moving here, so you know what? We just give them more reason to love living here now, right? So they're already moving here, but so moving forward. You've got your whole campaign. It's in action right now. How can people either connect with you, find you on social media? How are you telling people to get a hold of you so that if they do want to talk to you one-on-one, they've got some issue that we didn't talk about, how can they find you?
Yeah, if you just look me up if you're on Facebook, hopefully you are. I'm not cool enough for Instagram or some of those others, but if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm easy to find. But yeah, on Facebook, I've got my personal page and just a campaign page as well. If you just search Philip Ferguson, Philip with one L, Philip Ferguson, Celina City Council, I'm sure it'll come up for you. My phone number is on there. You can message me as well, or just comment on one of my posts. I'll circle back to you.
Do you want to give your phone number right now by chance for someone that may not even go on Facebook?
It's fine. It's 469-667-3918. 469-667-3918.
Sounds like a commercial.
Operators are standing by.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for doing this.
Ryan.
And I don't anticipate that we'll do this again in 3 years, but you're welcome back anytime. If there's anything ever going on in the city, let's just assume that you're going to get elected. I don't know if you will or not, but if you do and you want to come back, or even if not, and you just say, hey, I've got this thing, I want to come talk about it on your podcast, you're always welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate everything you do to the community, trying to keep people involved, which is great. And hopefully folks listen and learn something. And then, like I said, if there's any questions, let's reach out. I'm easy to find.
Right on. All right, guys. And that is Philip Ferguson.